here at the State of Perfect Balance work hard to bring you the stories of solved and unsolved murders from the smallest towns across Ohio. We appreciate every one of our subscribers and read your feedback faithfully. If you feel that what we do is worth a couple dollars each month, please consider becoming a patron supporter of ours. You can find out more on Podbean. And we want to give a special thanks to Vulture.com, as we were featured there this week in Podcast Roundup. Thank you so much for recognizing the hard work we do. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode.
This podcast deals with true events of a violent and disturbing nature, intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
A manhunt is underway in Ohio for the gunman who murdered 4 family members, including a young boy. Deputies found the bodies of 3 adults and a 7-year-old boy inside a mobile home in Pedro on Wednesday evening. A 4th adult showed up at the crime scene after work and was also stabbed and fled to seek help.
Hey guys, I'm your host Amanda, and this is the State of Perfect Balance. In any murder case, there is often a good amount of information reported through news channels. Details that are reported as evidence and testimony are given during the course of any trial. But there are always, and I mean always, backstories and bits of detail that are held back by authorities, and even more detail that comes in the form of exchange of information among surviving family and friends. The sort of information that, while generally not admissible at trial, adds color and form to the unfolding tale. And there's a reason courts don't admit such information as testimony. It's stuff that's hard to substantiate, hearsay and conjecture. As we grope for answers following a senseless crime, we often rely on these filler details to make sense of it, but they seldom form a complete picture. Stacey Jackson Holston was a newlywed, having married Todd Holston in May 2016. They lived in a mobile home in Pedro, Ohio, with her 7-year-old son Devin and another child of their own, Braxton, who was a toddler. They were close with her parents, and they had friends who visited often and helped out with watching the children. The crimes that destroyed this family have no discernible motive and seem hard to believe, even more so when you start to look at the many details that simply don't add up. And this is their story. Lawrence County is the southernmost county in Ohio, right down there on the tip that reaches into northern Kentucky. Pedro, tucked on the western edge of Lawrence County, is quite tiny and is in fact an unincorporated community. The population of surrounding Elizabeth Township is right around 2,400 people. There are no major businesses or historic locations. The thing to remember as we learn what happened in this tiny area is that it is quite rural. If you wouldn't feel pretty safe in such a remote place, you wouldn't likely feel safe anywhere. Yet, the carnage that visited this quiet tip of southern Ohio is among the worst you can imagine. Todd and Stacey Holston, who were 29 and 24, lived in their mobile home with Devin and their 2-year-old baby boy. Her mom, Tammy McGuire, who was 43, and her stepdad, Donald McGuire, 50, lived nearby. Todd's close friend and cousin of his wife's family, Erin Lee Lawson, helped out with the kids and babysat them often, and most days you would find Erin at the trailer, allowing the couple to have a bit of life of their own, or just sharing meals with the family. Todd and Erin had known one another quite well for at least 10 years and frequently spent time together. On the morning of October 11th, 2017, Todd Holston went off to work as usual with an electric utility company in the area. Devin went off to school, and Stacey remained behind in their trailer with their small son Braxton. Todd was in the newlywed sort of habit of calling his wife every day when he was ready to leave work and come home, though his work in an area with patchy cell service sometimes made this difficult. They used his commute time to talk and share stories about their day, something which had become quite precious to them over time. On that Wednesday afternoon, Todd had been calling home without being able to reach his wife and became concerned. He phoned his in-laws and asked if they would pop by the house and make sure everything was all right. They also considered it unusual for Stacey not to answer when called, and Tammy agreed to go there and check on things. Arriving at the trailer, Tammy found the house locked. She called Todd back to tell him this and asked if she should break in, and Todd said yes. After a few moments, Todd was listening as he suddenly heard his mother-in-law cry out, "Oh my God!" And then he heard what sounded clearly like a gunshot, and the phone went silent. Todd then called Donald McGuire and asked him to go to the house. Racing home himself, Todd reached the trailer at about 8 p.m. to find his door open and Aaron Lawson standing just inside. He was immediately attacked by the man he had no reason to distrust before. Aaron was a slight man, maybe 150 to 185 pounds, while Todd weighed almost twice that. Aaron, wielding a pocket knife, stabbed Todd in the neck, arms, and left temple. He seemed absolutely crazed, Todd would say later. Todd eventually overpowered Aaron, giving him a serious beating, and threw him through the door and out into their yard, locking the door behind him. Turning back into the house and bleeding himself, Todd found that what he had heard on the phone was indeed a shot being fired. Looking through the house, he tried to open a bedroom door, but it was blocked by what turned out to be the body of Donald McGuire. He thought that it might have been Devin. He found Stacey's naked body and saw that she was dead. Braxton was nearby the bodies, unharmed. The victims had each been blasted with a 20-gauge shotgun, the camouflage-painted model, which also lay on the floor. Though Todd didn't find Devin inside the house, he snatched up little Braxton and went outside, jumped into his car, and drove for help. 7-year-old Devin was not there accidentally. Aaron Lawson had called nearby Rock Hill Elementary School, using Stacey's cell phone, pretending to be the boy's father, and asked that the second grader be sent home immediately after school because a family member was ill. It was Devin's usual practice to go to his grandparents' house after school, rather than directly home. After Holston threw Lawson from the trailer, Lawson fled in a pickup truck stolen from the Holstons and remained at large for 2 days, resulting in an official manhunt involving dozens of officers, volunteers, and helicopters. I say official, as we have discovered that a sizable number of people in the community were also unofficially searching for Lawson, with intent to find and kill him before he could be apprehended. In any case, the latter group were unsuccessful. Before being captured, Lawson bought a change of clothes, something to eat at a fast food restaurant, and some weed. At one point, he crashed the truck into a ditch while being pursued by authorities, but jumped out and ran into the woods before he could be captured. He was eventually apprehended on October 13th at 10:35 a.m., after a passerby spotted him walking casually along a road and called police. He was taken into custody and held without bond. Initially, Lawson confessed to the crimes, detailing his involvement to detectives. When the indictment included the possibility of the death penalty, however, Lawson stalled in a period of legal wrangling lasting more than a year. Eventually, he accepted his fate and surrendered his right to have a jury make the sentencing decision, pleading guilty to 13 counts, including aggravated murder, attempted murder, and abuse of a corpse. Finally, a panel of 3 judges heard the case. His defense attorney, Kirk McVeigh, tried to make the argument that Lawson had led a troubled life. McVeigh claimed that Lawson suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, resulting from a lifetime of abuse and bullying at home. In fact, Lawson had been institutionalized after chasing a man with a butcher knife who he felt had insulted his deceased second mother, and his family had been warned that he was in need of treatment for mental disorders. "He's calling out, screaming out for help. Who is listening? Who acted on any of these things?" the attorney argued. McVeigh then went on to beg for leniency based on these items and the fact that he had confessed to the crimes. But the judges weren't buying it. On February 28, 2019, the judges sentenced Aaron Lee Lawson to die by lethal injection for the quadruple murders. He received an additional 59.5 years for related charges. He wasn't charged for the rape of Stacey Holston, however. The chilling reason is that she was already dead. Instead, it was the charge of abuse of a corpse. He is the first person in Lawrence County to be given a death sentence in 50 years. We have only 2 accounts of that horrible day to rely on: Lawson's confession and what Todd Holston had to say afterward. Both versions of events leave us with many questions. Lawson had been at the Holstons the night before the murders, and while there, he went into Devin's bedroom and wedged one of the child's books into a window, allowing himself access the next morning around 5 a.m. Once he was inside the house, he hid, having brought with him the shotgun, a ski mask, zip ties, and a hair and beard trimmer. When Stacey Holston emerged from the bathroom at about 8, he immediately fired 3 rounds at point-blank range and killed her. Blood on her hands and feet indicated she took at least 1 step and clutched her chest. Over the next several hours, Lawson engaged in behavior which would certainly play a role in determining his final sentence. He dragged Stacey's dead body into a bedroom, undressed and raped her. He mutilated her corpse and stuffed her body under a futon. Devin arrived home after school and began asking questions as he surveyed the scene. "Where's Mommy? What's going on?" Unable to restrain the boy's questions, he lured him into his bedroom with the promise of playing video games, and while Devin was playing, shot him twice. Oddly, the mobile home was searched for hours before discovering his body. The search and processing of the trailer in total took a full 40 hours. Tammy's body lay under some gathered dirty laundry near the washer and dryer. She had been shot in the face at such close range, authorities at first believe her teeth had been removed. We've been fortunate enough to speak with people close to the case, and what they have to say closely mirrors our own questions. There are just so many aspects of the murder of these 4 innocent people that don't add up. At all. Aaron Lawson was a friend of the family and a relative who was trusted to spend time with the 2 children on an almost daily basis. He was the nephew of Stacey's mother, Tammy. Why would he suddenly decide to kill any of them? As Todd Holston said, "I don't know why he did what he did. He was down at our house almost every day. We'd make him meals." Why did Lawson mutilate and abuse the corpse of Stacey Holston, spending all day with her body? And even more disturbing, he was taking care of Braxton, feeding him, changing his diapers, and playing with him until Devin got home from school. Lawson claimed he spared Braxton's life because he felt a stronger connection to him. He had been Braxton's babysitter numerous times. After he arrived, why did Todd Holston leave the trailer with his toddler son before ascertaining the fate of Devin? Why did it take hours or days to find Devin's body in such small quarters? Even if he had been hidden, as was later claimed, a blood trail and the fact that a mobile home is quite small leads anyone to believe he should have been found within moments. If you're searching for a necklace, for example, that takes time. A body in a trailer is not hard to find, especially if, as we understand it, Devon's body remained face down by the futon in plain sight and wasn't hidden. Lawson later claimed to have had a physical affair with Stacey Holston, which was ending, something which her family and close friends have discounted completely, saying it was simply not so. Stacey would never do that. Any affair was simply a product of Lawson's fantasies. And even if it were true, why kill her child? Why kill her parents? Were the parents somehow the actual intended victims? Stepping back, it seems as though they might have been lured there, one at a time. If Todd Holston heard his mother-in-law cry out, followed by what he believed to be a gunshot while talking on the phone with her, why not call 911? Instead, he called Donald. Why not call 911 from inside the locked trailer after finding the bodies, rather than leave and call from elsewhere? Holston's wounds from Lawson's pocket knife were not, we understand, serious. They were superficial, and he was treated and released from the hospital the same night. Why did Lawson attack the rest of the family with a shotgun, but Holston, who was twice his size, with a pocket knife? We have to admit, there's a lot about this crime's resolution that seems, well, odd. And it's not surprising or unusual that friends and family would try to fill the gaps in with snatches of information from here and there. But in the end, there isn't a lot of hard truth to go on. There are so many unanswered questions, and the answers will likely die with a needle in Lawson's arm several years in the future. For his part, Todd Holston maintains that Lawson probably killed Devon to ensure his silence after witnessing the murder of his mother. The true motive, whatever it may be, and as hard as it is to imagine or make fit with the circumstances of this case, may never be known. Not to belabor the point, but there are enough things that just don't fit to keep you up at night, wondering. They're things I'd like you to consider. If Todd Holston heard what sounded like a gunshot while talking to his mother-in-law on the phone, why did he not call 911 right away? Okay, yes, maybe he did. And cell service was iffy enough that he just couldn't, and said, screw it, I better just get home. But he did have service sufficient enough to call both of Stacey's parents. But why didn't he call 911 from inside the trailer once he was securely locked inside with the killer outside? Okay, yes. Maybe what he saw was just too much, and he wanted to get the hell out of there. But according to court documents, he didn't know where Devon was. Okay, yes. Maybe he didn't even comprehend who, exactly, was dead in his home, and under such horrific circumstances, couldn't come to immediate grips with the fact that they were all gone. It's unimaginable. And then, the big thing. Why did it take less time to apprehend the killer than it did to find the body of a 7-year-old boy inside a small house trailer? Why? Maybe. I don't know. It's odd. What do you think? But often, it's the simplest explanation that works. Maybe Aaron Lawson was someone with a serious, untreated problem, and as professionals had allegedly identified, needed intervention. Maybe he was someone who should not have been permitted to be around the children or family at all. But you know, he's our cousin, he's a little different, but harmless, right? Who hasn't dismissed a relative of questionable stability as being safe because, you know, they're family? And maybe law enforcement was just remarkably slow in processing the crime scene. Maybe Lawson did have a bad childhood. Maybe he was ill. Maybe he needed help, as his defense attorney said. But there are a lot of people out there who have endured terrible childhoods and who struggle with mental problems who don't shoot 7-year-olds, their mom, and her parents, or anybody. We can only be grateful that the 3 judges weren't buying it. Stacey Holston was a home health care worker, devoted to caring for and nurturing others. She was a mother, daughter, stepdaughter, student, caregiver, and lived her life in one of the quietest parts of the state. She was a beautiful woman, with dark eyes and flowing brown hair to match. Her sons were innocent and unaware of the ugliness humans are capable of. Newspapers, heartbreakingly, reported the obituaries, brief as they were, in succession down the page, one right after the other. A family wiped out, and we will always ache to know why. Stacey's brother, Brooke McCain, said that Lawson seemed obsessed with Stacey. He would constantly want to go to her house, he said. I don't know why he would want to kill all of them. I can't stand to be going through life without my father. My mother, she meant a lot to all of us. I just can't grasp the fact that she's gone. My mother was kind. She was a sharing person. She would help anybody. I don't see why she would be taken away from any of us. That's family. You don't go kill family.
Next time on The State of Perfect Balance.
My son and his girlfriend live out at 2161 Lawn Acre Lane. I believe that's Holland. This girl says she was on the phone with my son and his girlfriend, and he was supposed to go pick her up. He was telling her he was going out the door, and all she heard was the phone drop and heard my son saying in the background, "Who are you? What do you want? What are you doing here?" And she said she just drove by the house, and the house looks ransacked. All the lights are on. My son's not answering, and neither is the girlfriend.
Thank you for listening to episode 15 of The State of Perfect Balance, a true crime podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at The State of Perfect Balance Pod and Twitter at State Perfect. Check out our website at thestateofperfectbalance.com. And if you have a case suggestion, please feel free to email us at thestateofperfectbalance@gmail.com. We bring you new episodes every other Sunday with solved and unsolved murders in the smallest towns across Ohio. And remember, lock your doors. Evil lives everywhere. Not all small towns are safe. And check out vulture.com. We were mentioned there this week in Podcast Roundup. Exciting stuff.